For example, one study showed that if you've got diabetes, your risk of heart attack is up to 4 times higher than the average person. Another found that diabetics are twice as likely to have a stroke. And during a stroke, your clogged blood vessels slow blood flow to the brain. If you're a diabetic, a stroke is like sitting in the electric chair. I researched hard. I called universities to question them. I found medical journals dating 10 years back. I trawled through hundreds of diabetes studies on the internet. But the advice I kept seeing was no different to what my doctor always told me. Take your meds. Avoid too much sugar. It was this so-called advice that almost caused me brain damage from a diabetic coma and took me to the brink of leg amputation. I took myself to the point of exhaustion, searching late into the night on medical research websites and waking up early, day after day. My wife had to stop me because the stress was getting too much. I decided to take a break. My son Julian was due to visit with his fiancée from Japan, and I wanted to help him plan the wedding to make it the best ever. After all, it could be the last family event of my life. The next morning, as I had coffee with my son Julian and his fiancée Noriko over breakfast, I told them about my frustrations with my diabetes research. Maybe Noriko can help, Julian said. She majored in health science in Japan. In Japan, they target the root cause of health problems. Here in the U.S. and other Western countries, we manage the symptoms with medication. And that's why in Japan, they have far lower levels of diabetes type 2, heart disease, obesity, and cancer, and why they live much longer than us on average. Then Noriko told me about a maverick American medical professor who was based in Japan. His name was Professor James Freeman, and he was known in her country for his pioneering research in diabetes. Freeman was using research from an American university to develop a powerful new nutritional method to reverse diabetes type 2 for his Japanese patients. She was surprised I didn't know about it. This diabetes reversing method involved no medication, no crash diets, and no exercise. It activates a powerful mechanism which targets the root cause of the disease. Diabetics of all ages were following it from home and reversing their diabetes type 2 in weeks. And what's more, she had his contact details. Now, you may think I'd have bitten her arm off to get in touch with this guy, but I was skeptical. After all, which doctor had ever helped me fix my blood sugar? I was done with doctors by this point. But I had nothing to lose, so I emailed Freeman's office and left my details. Then 4 days later, I got woken up with a call from his assistant in Japan. "I'll make this quick," she said. "Professor Freeman will be in Chicago next week. If you'd like to see him, he can spare some time for you." She made an appointment for Friday afternoon, and that day I drove the 4 hours to Chicago, not knowing what to expect. Freeman was a bright guy, very clear and down to earth. I quickly learned he'd lived and worked in a few different countries. He had a number of awards for his breakthrough diabetes research in Japan, Dubai, and Singapore. And his story was interesting. His parents had both developed type 2 diabetes when he was in medical school. He'd seen how diabetes had ruined their lives. The side effects of the medication, the weight gain, the loss of energy, not to mention the drain on their finances. It was painful for him to watch. He'd made it his life's mission to find a way to reverse diabetes type 2 for good, and without needing meds that damage your kidneys and cost the earth. "Let's be clear about one thing, George," he told me. "The true cause of diabetes type 2 is not eating too much carbs or sugar. It's something entirely different. In fact, Americans have decreased their consumption of both sugar and carbs over the last 10 to 15 years. Yet diabetes type 2 rates are shooting up faster than ever before. People are trying desperately hard to fix their blood sugar, but they're doing it all wrong. Here's why. American scientists recently discovered a tiny lipid molecule, a foreign compound called a ceramide, which all diabetics have very high levels of. They discovered that this toxic molecule is the real cause of diabetes type 2, not carbs and not sugar. And their key research was backed up by Garvan Institute of Medical Research, Sydney, Australia, University of Białystok, Poland, and the medical journal Frontiers in Endocrinology. When these scientists switched off ceramides in obese mice with insulin resistance and fatty livers, they eliminated the fat around the organs, and their insulin and glucose responses suddenly became as sharp as those of healthy lean mice, and all without making any other changes. Of course, this breakthrough research wasn't reported by the media in the US. I only stumbled on it one night digging through studies on a British website. These tiny compounds force fat cells to spill into the bloodstream and clog up your vital organs, especially the pancreas, the liver, and the heart. You probably already know that your pancreas is the organ that produces insulin, but when it's clogged up with toxic fat, it can't do its job and secrete insulin. And insulin is what tells your cells to absorb sugar and energy from the foods you eat. Without insulin, sugar stays in your bloodstream and your blood sugar creeps up and up, eventually leading to diabetes type 2. This fat streams around the body, sticking to the liver and heart, and even clogging the arteries as well, which explains why diabetics are at a high risk of heart attack and often have fatty livers. Now, the problem is that some of us can't flush out foreign compounds like ceramides on our own. This is why some people get diabetes type 2 and others don't. Sure, losing some weight can help, but it's not enough for most people. No matter how hard you try to fix your blood sugar, even if you exercise daily and eat next to no sugar and carbs, it's near impossible to reverse diabetes type 2 unless you fix this one thing. He continued, "It's like trying to unblock your clogged sink when someone is pouring cooking fat down it every night. You'll try your best, but the fat keeps pouring down the pipes every night, blocking it up again. It's the same as when you try to fix blood sugar. If the fat keeps streaming into your blood and clogging up your pancreas, it'll never work. It's not your fault. The good news is we now know how to flush out the root cause of the fat, which is this ceramide compound. When you do that, you'll stop fat from entering your bloodstream and clogging your pancreas. You only need to add a powerful blend of phytonutrients to your diet that target and destroy the cause of this fat and melt it away. These phytonutrients are powerful plant compounds that help neutralize foreign agents in the blood, repair DNA damage from exposure to toxins, and fight against inflammation. You'll find them in certain fruits and vegetables. The most powerful of these plant compounds are called flavonoids, lignans, and prophenols. These may sound intimidating, but really, they're simple medicinal plant chemicals you'll find in foods at grocery stores. You'll find prophenols in foods like in chives, grapes, dark chocolate, and cinnamon. You'll get lignans from eating squash and carrots. And flavonoids you'll find in celery, parsley, and romaine lettuce. But the key is not to get these foods and just eat them in any order. You'll need to combine them in specific amounts and take them at certain times of the day for them to work. When you do that, you'll create a powerful catalytic effect and increase their potency. This is what kickstarts the powerful chain reaction to reversing your diabetes type 2. When you add these nutrients to your diet in these specific combinations, it'll be like you finally get rid of the guy who's pouring fat down your sink every night and blocking it up. You unclog your body, clean it out, and it starts working perfectly well again, especially your pancreas. This sounded good to me, but I was a little skeptical. How does it actually work? I asked him.